Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Change Lives. I'd like to share a story with you this morning of someone that I met while we were doing work of reaching people for Jesus. And this is her testimony. Not all fairies are good ones. My childhood is a bad memory. The bad cancelling out the good that might have been there. My strongest memories being of sexual abuse, a suicide attempt at the age of 12, and maternal abandonment, which left me with a chip on my shoulders, and I became a wild child. At the age of 15 and a half, because I wouldn't get my fringe cut, I was thrown out of my home and then became pregnant. I fought the pressure to abort the baby, and by the age of 16 I ended up in a mother and baby home. I fought the pressure to have my baby adopted, as I was determined to keep my baby. I married the baby's father when the baby was 5 months old, but the marriage was a disaster. When I was 18, my stepmother told me about Ouija sessions they were having and how good they were. I was intrigued and went along. The session was going well, using the glass and alphabet cards, until suddenly the glass spun around rapidly, repeatedly knocking one of the letters off the table. Finally, we could not keep our finger on the glass, and it flew across the room. We were all scared. Following the birth of our second child, we tried to make a go of our marriage, but when I was 23, we called an end to it. I then began a meditation to try and bring calmness and strength to my life. I believe meditation empowered me and balanced my life. I was doing the meditation twice a day, as instructed, and I found I was beginning to see beyond the natural and know things I did not naturally know. This frightened me. At this time I was in pain with warts all over my fingers on one hand, even under my fingernails. I went and had them burnt off at the hospital, but they came back worse than before. When I saw the doctor, he said he could burn them off again, but they would return. As I was in pain with them throbbing, I went to see a spiritual healer. After my first visit, the throbbing stopped, and in 2 or 3 days after my second visit, the warts disappeared altogether. Whilst making these visits, the gentleman tried to tell me about the spirit world. I warned him that if he carried on doing so, I would no longer visit. I believed in God, but I didn't want to know about spirits. Over the years, I had a number of times when my life and the world of the supernatural coincided in very unpleasant ways. The meditation I got involved in required me to empty my mind. I found this very effective, but it also made me an open transmitter to all sorts of unhealthy spirits without me realising it. A second marriage led to further abuse. When I discovered the man I had married was not just a drinker, but an addicted alcoholic. This left my children and I in a woman's refuge, back at home. I began to use cannabis as a crutch. At times when I became emotionally upset or anxious, I found I was very open to negative influences, and in the area of the spirit, picking up on the work of a satanic group who were practicing their evil arts from 1986, I began to read New Age books, explore visualization techniques, use various divination tools, including rune stones, and I was drawn to the Buddhist chanting. In 1990, my mother died, having lost her battle against cancer. I lost my battle to save my house from being repossessed, a house in which I was once again having lots of frightening things happen. I had a severe breakdown, which ended with me trying to take my life and found me being pronounced dead on arrival at hospital. Whilst I was lying in a coma, my family were told I had a 50-50 chance of living. I made it. I now had the guilt of attempted suicide. I was homeless, but with the support of my children and friends, I was able to rent a property to live in. In the mid-90s, 1990s, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which resulted in me spending several short visits in a mental hospital. I was also diagnosed with ME during this time. Various healers tried to help me as they recognised that I had an entity with me. This included 2 Church of England clergy, one of whom was a national church exorcist. This was helpful to me, but unwittingly I kept opening myself up to negative forces. The emotional upset of caring for my mother-in-law while she was suffering from bowel cancer once again triggered a near-fatal suicide attempt. This left me with a damaged knee, which added to my mobility problems. When my mother-in-law died, I once again needed the help of professional mental health nurses and further medication. I was permanently struggling with guilt and fighting the occult influences which had plagued my life. I was at the stage of being in my home and just managing to survive when one morning there came a knock on my door. On opening it, I found 2 men on the doorstep, one of whom offered me a Bible. I said, "No thanks. I believe in God and I've got a Bible." Then one of the men, Keith, rather anxiously said, "Have you ever used a Ouija board?" I said, "Yes." I felt relief. I knew he was going to help me, and I opened the door and invited him in. I wanted Keith to know that I believed in God and Jesus, and so I showed him a painting I was doing of Jesus. Keith asked if he could come back that afternoon with his wife Pauline, which he did. That afternoon they prayed for me and through my home. From that moment my deliverance began. Pauline came each week for Bible study, plus valued friendship and counselling. Over time, I chose to remove from my home any artefacts and books which I realised had been keeping me open to negativity. After about 18 months, I went to a meeting Keith and Pauline were holding, and I felt so uplifted. I felt the glory of the Holy Spirit so strongly on me. As I left, I said to Keith, "Wow, that was much stronger than a spliff." I phoned Keith and Pauline the next day to ask if they would baptise me, and they agreed to do so. Pauline continued to visit for friendship and Bible study. One afternoon, Keith called as our time finished, and I was saying how difficult it was for me to walk, and that I would need to see the doctor about having my shoe built up. Keith offered to pray for me. I sat on the sofa and put my legs out. Keith supported my legs under my heels. We all saw that one leg was 2 inches shorter than the other. Whilst Keith prayed to Jesus to perform a miracle, I closed my eyes. Keith told me to open my eyes. Both my legs were the same length. Keith told me to walk up and down. I was amazed that I was able to walk normally. Keith had not manipulated my legs or feet, only supported them under my heels. Jesus had done the miracle. Since then, my wasted leg muscles began to be restored, and I am now able to walk without a stick. I continue my friendship with God, which has brought me comfort, balance, joy, emotional healing, and a deep, deep peace. I now enjoy living in the present and trust my future to God. I have joined a local Christian fellowship. My life has turned around, and I've discovered that not all fairies are good ones. Thank you for listening to this, and may it help you today to get free from any occultic activity. God bless you all.